I received a comment in one of my coloring videos suggesting I create a pattern coloring book. But to be perfectly honest, I have not colored patterns. I don't know if I'm going to like it. So I got this very viral coloring book, Satisfying Patterns coloring book, because it's popped up everywhere. There's such a big hype around this book. So I wanted to test it out, see how I feel about it, and after that, see if I wanted to create a pattern book myself. So let's look through this book and get creative. Let's get a closer look at this book and let me show you what you can find in it as I flip through it. It has 31 sided pages and it was designed by It's Ali XO. You can find her videos coloring her book on both Insta and TikTok, and you can also find many other people coloring it here on YouTube. If I'm being super honest, when I first flipped through it, it gave me a little bit of anxiety and I felt overwhelmed by all the intricate patterns and all the space that needed to be colored in. Like, oh my God, look at this wavy pattern. It made me dizzy at first. I felt especially intimidated by the pages with smaller patterns. I thought they were going to take forever and they were going to test my patience. But because this book has been so hyped on social media for how amazing and relaxing it is, and I see all of these super satisfying videos of people coloring patterns, I thought I would give it a try. I chose this first page, I guess because it has the largest areas to color and that felt less overwhelming. And since I'm using alcohol markers, I did put a piece of cardstock behind the page I chose to avoid bleeding through the next one. I chose alcohol markers because they are my favorite for coloring, but you can definitely color with regular markers, acrylic markers, colored pencils, whatever. This smooth, no streak finish that alcohol markers give you, it's just a trend. Remember that, and you do you. I felt compelled to start filling the spaces with different shades of red, and then I thought maybe I should use the gradient to make it more interesting. I wish I had a clearer vision of what I wanted to do before starting to plan it better, but like I said, I was a little doubtful coming in. Filling the large spaces felt great, and it started to relax me. It's really nice to do since the lines in the book are pretty thick, so it's really easy to stay inside of them and just enjoy coloring, filling the space. No pressure at all. You will, though, see me go outside the lines in some areas regardless, because I was taking a very laid back approach, not stressing myself at all. Not with the coloring, not with the color choices, and not with the composition. I started to slowly move into the other families of colors as I used any marker that called me. And at first, I was putting each marker back in its place, but then I started to leave them out, thinking maybe I would like to add shadows later. I do this because even with the swatch card, it's sometimes hard to identify which color you actually picked if you're using a large marker set. I was using the 120 marker set from Ohuhu, and the swatch card is thicker cardstock, it's a different surface, and it has been dried for months, as opposed to the book, which it's different paper and the colors are still pretty wet, so they look just a tad different, but enough to be confusing. So that's why I leave the markers out, which honestly was not as helpful as it usually is because I use so many colors. I later still had a hard time matching them, but you'll see how I went around this later. As I was coloring in with the light yellows, I stained my page because I hadn't noticed that I rubbed the side of my hand into the fresh ink of the red side, and I carried that pigment with me and it transferred. Oh well, I couldn't care less at the moment because I wasn't going for perfection, but my enjoyment. Then I moved to the greens, and then I started slowly moving onto those emerald shades that have a little bit of teal inside of them, trying to go up to blues, which I never got to, of course, because I did not have space for a complete rainbow. Like I said, no planning. Here's how the entire page looked once I finished, and here are all of the markers I'd taken out. So many. So for shadows, I wanted to try something before trying to match all these color spaces. I grabbed a couple of shades of super light grays and I tried to add dimension using those by blending them in and adding shadows. But I think the blending with lighter colors on top was a bad idea because the fresh alcohol in them acted like the colorless blender and it picked up color and made my areas blotchy. So no, don't do that. Let's scratch that idea. And by the way, if you're looking for coloring techniques and the proper way to use the markers, I do have a couple of videos that will guide you. I will link them in the description. Here, I was just trying stuff. And yeah, that was a fail. I thought I already ruined the page, but decided, as always, to carry on to see what happens. I either save it or learn something, I thought, both being great outcomes in my eyes. I started to try to match the markers and create this rounded shadow on each shape. At first, I was going to try to make sense of this pattern somehow by adding the shadow only to half of the shapes, but that was looking weird, so I just went all around them. I did add shadows to those areas I failed on before to try to tie everything together. And as I grew tired of trying to match the colored shapes with the actual marker I grabbed, I just use one from the same color family to go on top of all the color variations. I don't know if that made sense, but you can see here with the red, I'm not switching markers. I just use the same marker on every red space, and it kind of worked. So yay. That was my last step and my first ever pattern page. I think it looks okay. And here's my 2 cents after doing this first one. I did enjoy the process a lot, even with no planning. And now that it's colored, I can see the shapes with more clarity and know what I would do differently. But I think it's not necessary for this to be super aesthetic. It was easy to enjoy, and I think above all, that's the point of coloring as an adult. I do think that maybe I would like these patterns to be smaller in the square format I like. So, armed with that idea, I decided to tackle one of the intimidating pages that made me a little dizzy earlier. To make it easier on my eyes and brain, I thought I would divide it somehow. And with my book out, I thought of adding a shape to the center. A heart would have been amazing, but I took the easy road out and I drew a large circle. Then I grabbed 7 markers in rainbow order and I started coloring. I feel for me, this was only about starting and how I approached it because I do love doing centangle patterns and reverse coloring and coloring for relaxation. So this should be fun for me, right? It should. A smaller area definitely felt great and helped my impatient self take a new perspective towards this type of page. I painted the 7 first lines in order, but grew tired of switching markers, so after the first round, I just counted lines and finished with each color. So all of the red first, then orange, yellow, green, teal, blue, and purple. Done. Having colored the large element in the middle and having it being so fast and easy really took the pressure off me and really made the page less intimidating. I was getting rid of my overwhelming. So after that, I was really ready to tackle the background. For the background, I only chose 3 colors: dark gray, light gray, and black. And again, here I'm going to follow a pattern. But because it's only 3 colors, it's really easy to do 1 color at a time and just skip the 2 lines in between, so no marker switching. And of course, as I'm saying that it's easy, I made a mistake. But it's no worries, it was an easy fix. I just went over that area with black later. This part was nice. I feel it was something I would enjoy while watching TV maybe or listening to a book. It was nice. So after the gray was done, I reached for the black to fix that mistake because yes, it was bothering me. For an artist, I'm a super type A person. With the eyesore fixed, using the black marker was delicious. And now the last color was the light gray. Easy peasy, you just color in whatever white spaces you have left. So here it is, everything's filled now and it looks a little bit disconnected. So to fix that, I outlined the circle with a black marker. Then I thought I would add some shadows to make it pop and look more like a sphere. So I chose a light purple to go over all of the rainbow colors to create the shadow, which I think it worked well. And then I also created a shadow with gray in the background to help the illusion. Finally, I added some highlights with a white acrylic marker, and that's this page. And the concept was slowly growing on me. I think definitely for me, it's easier to handle smaller spaces because when I saw the hearts, I did feel a little bit overwhelmed by them still. So if you're on the fence, I encourage you to try and see how it feels for you because you'll probably be able to find a printable pattern online if you're not sure you want to commit to the book just yet, and you can try it out. I honestly think if I start coloring them and maybe use 2 or 3 alternating colors, the overwhelming feeling of looking at the page would disappear and I would be super engaged with this simple activity. Well, contrary to what I'm saying, a little bit cray-cray here. I chose the first page, which I thought I had a good idea for, and which I also thought would be nice to color again because of the possible large spaces. I decided to focus on the rows of large cubes and not the individual squares. I started with the middle row, making it pink, using 3 different shades of pink for each face of each individual cube. Then I did the same with the next layer underneath with red. Then I used orange, and then for the layers on top of the pink cubes, I used purple and blue. I think I did a bad job choosing the same values for each color, but it still looks kind of okay. And on this page, I used less markers and kept them all outside the box, so I decided it would be super easy for me to go back and add shadows to improve the look of the page. I think it's a plus. Just look at the page with and without shadows. It looks better, right? Finally, I thought highlights would be nice too, so I started adding some, and you can see how unsure I was about this step because my first strokes, they just look nervous. But then I gained some confidence and did it a little bit better. Are the highlights a major improvement? I don't think so, but this page was fast, and in that sense, it felt satisfying to complete it. I think another nice feature of these patterns is that they are broad enough to allow for a little creativity, but still remain simple enough that you'll feel less intimidated by just slapping color onto the page with not much planning. That's the biggest difference I see from coloring pages with characters or scenes in them. I really like this next page. I'm attracted to the overlapping shapes. It looks to me like watercolor art where they layer the colors and get different colors from mixing them. And I like that. A little bit of layering can certainly happen with alcohol markers too. I decided to use a pastel alcohol marker set for this one because I thought it was going to be perfect since they are so light and they would be easier to layer. On this page, I wasn't really worried about which shades I had used or not. I was just filling the spaces, enjoying the colors, and if a color seemed too similar to one next to it, I would just layer another one on top when it dried, of the same color family or something a little different. It was working because, again, I was using analog colors, meaning going in rainbow order again. As I filled the page, I thought it would be so pretty to fill an entire book of patterns with pastels only. Imagine that. Well, coloring the page really helped me understand why books like these are so popular. The repetitive shapes let your mind settle into a rhythm. And because it is repetitive, you do not spend so much time stuck in decision mode. You can just grab 2 or 3 colors and go. I actually love that. Fewer supplies, fewer choices, and less pressure. And sure, if you want, you can always get creative, add smaller patterns inside the big shapes, divide the page into sections, experiment with color. But I think books like this can also remind us of something important. We do not have to treat every hobby like a performance. Like, social media has made coloring look incredibly advanced. People create literal works of art inside coloring books, which is fine, but that sometimes makes the rest of us feel like the bar to enter a simple hobby is much higher than it actually is. But honestly, coloring can just be a sheet of paper and a few crayons if that's what makes you happy. That's why I liked the book. With the patterns and straightforward shapes, you can bring back that simple kind of joy. The joy of filling in a blank space with color and watching the page come to life with no expectations, no pressure, just the calm of the before and after. So this is why I'm definitely taking this book to my monthly coloring night with my cousins. Those evenings are never about making the prettiest page. They are about chatting, eating snacks, laughing, and coloring like we used to when we were kids. Except now we're adults with stress and responsibilities, so the coloring helps even more. Honestly, my simplest pages come from those nights, and they are always my favorites because the memories attached to them. And this pattern page, super satisfying. It relaxed me so much. I found myself excited to finish it and not in a pressured way, just genuinely eager. And here's the final result. I love how it turned out. So now let's look at everything else we colored today. This first page wasn't my greatest moment, but I'm still glad I tried. Definitely got the relaxing benefits and it looks okay. Same with this one, the one I divided. I actually like that one a lot too. This next one, I think I could have done better, but it's still perfectly good. And the last one, I love. Doing all of this made me want to try making a pattern coloring book myself, so thank you for the suggestion, but in a smaller square format because I think I'd enjoy working on a more compact space. And speaking of my coloring books, I'm still working on my third coloring book with the fluffy characters I created in that video, which I'll link below. And yes, it's taking me longer than the first two, but it's coming together. Here's a little sneak peek of some of the sketches I've made for it, and I've already started digitalizing and inking, so hopefully it won't be too much longer now. But now I'm curious, which one would you like to see from me first? A pattern book a la Paula, or my cozy forest book? Also, let me know if there are other coloring trends or books you'd like to see me try, or if you want to see me do more pages from this super satisfying pattern book. Okay, that's enough questions for today. I hope you enjoyed this video, that I'll see you in the next one, and that you're having the most wonderful day. Bye!